In 1995, I was working for a company called the Military Psychological Institute, the MPI, and there was a course that we had to present to the senior officers. They had to go into a 9-month course. So you've got all these, you've got APLA senior officers, you've got MK senior officers, you've got Mkontuwisi's, where you've got the old Defence Force senior officers, all thrown into one space, and they need to live together for 9 months. I had to facilitate this 2-day session, and on my left was APLA and MK and Mkontuwisi's, and then there was 6 chairs open, and on the right was the old Defence Force. And you could cut the atmosphere with a scissor. And I was mandated very, very strictly by my organization not to deviate from my agenda. And the very first agenda item was that they had to share their leadership role models with the team. And I asked this officer on my left to share his leadership role model, and he said it was Nelson Mandela. And this was 1995, so we were still a new democracy. And you could hear the murmuring on the right of the room because people were not very happy about this. I asked the next officer, and he said, Chris Hani, who has been shot by the Boers, and he showed to the other side of the room. And I realized that this session is just way too much for me. But I followed the agenda. I got to the next guy, and he said, Peter, 1 settler, 1 bullet, Mukaba. And by this time, they were now swearing at each other. So I facilitated this thing as best as I could, and I skipped the 6 open chairs, and I moved over to the right side of the room. And the first guy said, General Christian de Wet, one of the Boer generals. And he explained, but you could hear a murmuring on the left. And the next guy said, Barend Witwolf Strydom. And I mean, this was 1995, so it's hectic. And I remember that I asked them to take a smoke break because I could not facilitate the session anymore. The session was getting out of hand. And they walked out, and I looked out of the window, and I saw under the one tree is the one group smoking, and looking at their non-verbal hand language, I could see that they're very angry. And looking at the other, underneath the other tree was the other group, and exact same. And I realized there, in my isolation, that I can either run now and disappear, or I fundamentally change the agenda. And I changed the agenda on my own, out of mandate. When they got back, they were sitting on the left, APLA's, MK's, and Mkontuwisi's, where 6 chairs open, old Defence Force on the right. I asked the first officer to share with the team his military experience. And he said that he was a MiG fighter pilot commander. He was a MiG commander, and he was instrumental with Kalawek. And there was this utter silence in the room. And I was scared because this is a very sensitive point. And I thought I should have never deviated from the agenda. But I somehow managed to navigate it and got to the next guy, and he shared that he's been a commander on the tanks. And the next guy, they had extensive experience. But there was utter silence on the right. And then I saw a hand on the right, and one of these senior officers asked that if he can ask a question. And I was scared because I knew that, this might just be the turning point. This thing is going to explode in my face now. And he asked this officer on my left, what MiG did you fly that day? And he shared with him the story. And it was becoming a kind of a technical discussion. And I realized as facilitator, I need to become less so that they can become more. I need to allow them to talk. And that's all I did. For that entire day, they just talked. And that evening I got a phone call from my boss saying to me, what did I do? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you did something right. They were having a beer together in the bar. And the next morning when they walked in, it was a black officer, and then a white officer, and then a colored officer, and then a black officer. And there was no 6 open chairs anymore. Something happened. They found common ground. They've realized The fact that we are soldiers supersedes everything. And the reason why I'm telling this story is because I believe there's a fundamental lesson in there for us as leaders in organizations. If we can replicate what I did on that day in 1995 into our organizations today, we can get rid of the 6 open chairs. I fundamentally believe that. We need to help people to find common ground. We need to help people to realize that we are more the same than we are different. We need to help people to realize that we are all soldiers. If we do that, the 6 chairs at the back of the room will disappear. If you've got challenges in your organization with your 6 open chairs, and you've got groups on the left and you've got groups on the right, contact SimpleXity. Let us help you.